In this video, I'll show you step by step how not to make a kitchen knife. Let's start. I decided to use an old saw blade as my knife material, which either by itself or by my huge ineptitude as a bladesmith turned out to be a mistake. I started by cleaning a bit of the surface so I could draw the silhouette of the knife to cut out. After cutting out the rough blank piece for the knife, I used a knife I did previously but forgot to record to draw similar lines. Then I cut out closer to those lines and grinded to give it the final shape, using both the angle grinder and some hand files. I clean up the lines in the bolster area with some files. Trust me, that is a file. I use the marker to identify any low and high spots while sanding. After sanding both sides flat, I used a DIY rig with a file to make the bevels. Well, just one, since I was too lazy to make two, and decided therefore to make a single bevel knife. The rig worked surprisingly well. Despite making a horrible noise, I could still hear over full volume Rammstein blasting on my earphones, which is quite an achievement. After grinding an initial bevel, I decided to harden the steel first before the edge became too thin. This is where things would start to go wrong. I let the forge, if you can even call this a forge, first try, trust me on that. And after some time, when the coal was finally hot enough to put in the knife, the air blower decided to die. Fast forward a couple of days, when a new blower arrived, I decided to leave the forge again and harden both knives before the day ended. The reason I stand so far away is because when I first used gasoline to lit the fire, it exploded and burned my arms. Who would have thought? I also forgot to tape the blower to the pipe, which, as you can see, I'm suddenly realizing. I poured normal linseed oil for the quench because I can't afford anything fancier, and preheated it with a piece of steel. Here I am practicing the quenching, since that's what all pro blacksmiths do. As you can see by the dramatic changes in lighting, this was a pretty quick and easy process which didn't take very long at all. I quenched both knives, which not only turned out looking like bananas, but one of them also had a crack in the edge and bevel, so it was useless. The next day I decided to lead the forge again, normalize and straighten the remaining knife, which also ended up cracking. The following week, after I was done crying, I cut out 2 more knife blanks from another saw blade. I didn't record this because at this point the footage was already over 500 gigabytes, so you get the idea. After all these failures and setbacks, I was running out of time, so I chose just one knife to work on and finish, which once again turned out to be the wrong choice. After grinding, making the bevels and sanding, I decided to make a secondary bevel with the filing rig. However, instead of using a file, I used different grit sandpaper. Everything was looking nice until I noticed that half of the edge was soft steel. I suspect due to the fact that it was from the inner ring of the saw blade. The following day I was planning to leave and was about to give up on the whole project. However, I decided to pull through and try to finish the second knife. I did the same steps as I described before. After I finished the blade, I decided to etch it in boiling vinegar to give it a protective patina. The smell from this boiling vinegar lingered on the house for a couple of days, and well, it's a strong smell, probably comparable to 1,000 decaying bodies, which didn't make my grandma very happy. After a few weeks of arriving in the UK, I decided to finish the project, because believe it or not, I still needed a kitchen knife. So, I headed into the garage to make the handle out of the beautiful Wengan body wood, hoping I wouldn't waste these pieces since I took the trouble of getting them all the way here from Poland. I started by making the slot for the tang, carefully drilling through the wood and using Dremel bits to open it up some more. After struggling for a few hours with this, I somehow managed to make a fairly even and tight hole for the tang. I made a hole in the other piece as well, and then proceeded to glue them together with epoxy resin. After it kit for 2 days, it didn't need that long, I just forgot about it, I pulled it out and started filing to give it an octagonal shape. I quickly realized it would take ages and never look as good as I wanted it to, because my files were either too soft and didn't take out any material, or too aggressive. So, I took a well-wrapped knife to the university workshop, hoping police wouldn't stop me on the way there and arrest, since it was bigger than a butter knife. Once I was there, I used a belt sander to give it the octagonal shape I wanted. This process came to be quite stressful and made me question if buying a 30-pound knife from TK Maxx wouldn't have been a better option for my mental health rather than making one myself. Here are a few pictures of this process because I couldn't film in the workshop. In any case, after I was done with the handle, I glued it up to the blade with epoxy and applied a couple layers of mineral oil to protect it and give it nice and rich colors. Here is the final result. In conclusion, I hope you've learned absolutely nothing from this video and never attempt to make a knife yourselves. See ya!